Hi there, welcome to the 11th in our series of MCQ based revision quizzes to help AQA A Level Business students test themselves, cover a lot of ground before the exam. So let's have a go at these 15 questions on business strategy. As always, the aim is to try and get 10 or more marks, try and beat the average from last year, June 2017, the first time we saw paper 1 MCQs. And these 15 questions are all drawn from the business strategy elements of the specification, in particular from the second year, 3.7 through to 3.10. There are no calculation questions on this quiz, but you may want to have a pencil or pen down to write your answers down and see how you get on with the 15 questions. Let's have a go with question 1. A business increases its market share from 25% to 34%. According to the Ansoff Matrix, this increase would suggest a successful strategy of what? Here are the 4 options, so pause the video now and make your selection. And let's have a look at the answer. In June 2017, the Ansoff question was poorly answered, and hopefully we're going to be better this time round. The answer is C, market penetration. An increase in market share is very much an objective of a market penetration strategy, trying to sell more of your existing products to your existing customers' markets. Try and gain that market share. So market penetration was the correct answer. Let's have a go now at question 2. The 2 dimensions used to determine strategic options in Bowman's strategic clock are what? 4 choices to have a look at. Pause the video, have a go. Bowman's strategic clock, an interesting and different model, part of the AQA specification, and indeed the 2 dimensions where you determine your strategic position is D, price and perceived value. There's a copy of an image of the Bowman strategic clock model on the screen there if you want to revise that. Hopefully we're 2 out of 2. If not, have a go at question 3. Which of the following models helps a business determine its strategic position in comparison to key competitors? 4 more options for you to have a look at. Pause the video. Which one did you go for? Well, in this case, the correct answer is B. Yeah, market mapping, which is very much all about determining your strategic position based around typically 2 dimensions. Those dimensions can be different. The one on the screen there, we've shown dimensions in terms of price and quality from low to high, but it can be other things, for example, luxury to basic. Lots of different dimensions that you can use to determine your positioning compared with competitors. Question 4 now uses index numbers. So, using the table below, which shows data about 4 businesses, which business is experiencing diseconomies of scale? So you may have to think carefully about this one. Diseconomies of scale. Pause the video, have a look at those index numbers, and then come back with the right answer. Okay, with index numbers, don't forget it's all about the base. So last year the base is 100, and we can see this year that the index numbers have changed, and that tells us whether, in this case, the index of production, output, has gone up or down, and also whether unit costs this year have gone up or down by reference to the index. And so we're looking for diseconomies of scale, and that would be where unit costs rise as output rises. Normally with economies of scale, unit costs fall as output rises, but diseconomies of scale, not a great thing to have in a business. Unit costs rising as output rises, and here we're looking for an index where both are rising, and that's only business A. As we can see, the index of production, output rose 20%, unit costs rose 30% in comparison to last year. So the answer is A, business A. Okay, question 5. This is one of the 2 statement question formats. So read through each of the statements and decide whether each is either true or false. Statement 1. 2 competing manufacturing businesses merge to form a new, larger business. This is an example of horizontal integration. Statement 2. A retailer buys a company which manufactures products sold by the retailer. This is an example of forward vertical integration. So pause the video, work out your combination of true, false, and then see if you got it right. As with all the 2 statement format questions, the key is to work through each statement systematically. The answers A, B, C and D are always the same. So let's work through. Statement 1, two competing manufacturers merging to form a larger business. Yeah, that is a great example of horizontal integration. The businesses are at the same stage of the value chain, both manufacturers, therefore horizontally integrating. A retailer buying a business which manufactures products sold by the retailer, that's a retailer buying one of its suppliers, that's actually going down, back down the supply chain, so that will be backwards vertical integration. Therefore, statement 2 is false. Statement 1 we said was true, therefore the answer is B. Okay, question 6. In the long term, a pressure on management to adopt a short-termist approach to strategic decision making is most likely to result in what? Have a look at those combinations of higher investment, lower investment, less or more innovation. Pause the video, work out your combination. And in this case, to answer this, we need to have an understanding of what's meant by short-termism. Well, let's have a look at the answer first. The answer was D, lower investment and less innovation. Why is that the case? Well, it's often said that short-termism focuses management on maximising profitability in the short term and therefore taking decisions which may be in the long-term interest of the business, but which damage potentially short-term profits. And there is evidence to suggest that short-termism results in lower investment and less innovation in the long term. And it's often, commentators on this often point to a group of businesses in Germany called the Mittelstand, which are typically privately owned and which very much take a long-term, not short-term approach, and they tend to invest and innovate much greater than other businesses. So the answer was D. Okay, moving on, question 7. A key feature of enterprise resource planning, ERP software, is what? Have a look at those, pause the video, have a go. Enterprise resource planning software. It might sound like a strange term, but it's actually on the AQA specification. So we'll need to have a little understanding of what it is. And the answer in this case is A. Enterprise resource planning software is very sophisticated software that enables all the business functions, or nearly all of the business functions, to be managed together with a single system. Very close integration, for example, of inventory control and production scheduling, and perhaps also human resource management and supplier management. That's the key feature of enterprise resource planning software. Okay, question 8, just about halfway now, so have a look at this one. The management of change by introducing many small and often unplanned changes in support of a goal is called what? Have a look at those 4 options. Have a go. So don't forget, in your AQA specification, the management of change is right at the end in terms of the strategic decisions, the strategy adopted by a business. And it's a very important distinction between 2 terms, step and incremental change. In this case, incremental change is the correct answer, answer B. Incremental change are the many small changes in the business that happen over a period of time, often not easy to notice them. Whereas step change is a very significant, often a one-off change in the business, maybe a change in strategic direction or culture. So B, answer is B. Okay, question 9. A business decides to move the location of its production capacity from its home country to a country with lower unit costs. This is an example of what? Have a go at this one. Now, there are some terms on here that sound very similar. You may have gone for B, outsourcing, but actually the answer is D, offshoring. Students sometimes confuse outsourcing and offshoring. They sound similar and they are related, but in this case it's offshoring. Offshoring is a change in where production takes place. In this case, from the home country to a different country, moving it offshore. Outsourcing is about who does the work, not necessarily where it takes place. So offshoring was the right answer. Okay, question 10. Walt Disney Company is a multinational business with a diverse portfolio of media and leisure businesses. In 2017, it agreed to a merger with a business, 21st Century Fox, which also has diverse business activities. This is an example of what kind of integration? 4 options for you to think about there. So pause the video, have a think. This whole idea of horizontal, backwards, forward, conglomerate integration sounds quite complicated, but they are all terms on the specification, so we need to be familiar with them and how they differ. In this case, the answer is it's C. Walt Disney Company is an example of a conglomerate, a business with many different business interests operating in many different business markets and industries. And of course, Walt Disney operates around the globe. It owns TV companies, it runs amusement parks, it does all kinds of stuff. And it's merged here with another business, 21st Century Fox, which also is similar. Therefore, it's also a conglomerate. It has diverse business activities. Therefore, it's integration of two conglomerates. Therefore, conglomerate integration. Answer C. Okay, we're into the last 5 questions now. So this is one more of those 2-statement format questions. Have a go at this one. Statement 1. A business achieves higher revenues as a direct consequence of buying a rival business. This is an example of a synergy. Statement 2. A business decides to close a major business unit in order to reduce costs. This is an example of retrenchment. What do you think? True or false for each of those statements? Pause the video and make your selection. So there's 2 interesting and useful uses of specialist terminology here. This is why these 2-statement format questions, I think, will be becoming increasingly popular with, not necessarily with us, but with the examiner, because it enables the examiner to test specialist terminology and also to test more of the spec. Well, statement 1 is true. That's exactly what a synergy is. A synergy can be both a revenue synergy as well as a cost synergy. In this case, we're describing a revenue synergy, an increase in revenues as a consequence of buying a rival business, external growth. That wouldn't have happened without buying the rival business, therefore it's a synergy. And below, retrenchment is about scaling back. If you've not come across that term before, it's about cutting back, in this case closing a business unit to reduce costs. So both were correct, therefore in this case the answer is A. How are we doing? Are we getting close to the magic number of 10 yet? Maybe you're on 8 or 9 or even 10 or 11. Let's have a look at question 12. In Hofstede's study of national cultures, what term was used to categorise cultures in terms of their attitude to societal rank and status? So thinking back to Hofstede's model, here are 4 options for you to choose from. And with good old Gert Hofstede's study, originally about IBM but since updated to look at other businesses, the answer here was B, perhaps the most famous example of the different categories of culture that Hofstede and his team identified. Power distance, yeah, it's all about in society, is there a clear sense of rank and status? Are the younger ones expected to respect the elders? That would generate a high power distance index. And we can see from the screen there, I've put some recent data from the Hofstede Institute to show how the different measures of culture vary by country. So let's just quickly highlight one here. China has a high power distance ranking index, as does Singapore, but in the UK, less so, very much more aligned with the US and Australia in terms of our approach to the importance of social rank and status. So there we go, the answer is B. Okay, 3 questions left now. Have a go at this one. In network analysis, activities that are on the critical path have what? 4 options to choose from, so pause the video. So hopefully you've covered network analysis. If not, you've got some fun to come. The answer is D. Yeah, activities on the critical path have 0 float. What that means is they can't be delayed. There is no scope for them to be delayed without delaying the overall project. And the reason for this is that activities on the critical path are on the longest path. They can't be delayed. If there's any delay to an activity on the critical path, the whole project gets delayed. Whereas activities with float can have some delay and not affect the project completion time. So the answer is D, 0 float. Okay, 2 questions left, and this is the last of the 2-statement format questions. You may be relieved to hear. Quite a tough one though, this one, so let's look at these carefully. Statement 1. According to Porter's 5 forces model, an increase in the threat of new market entrants will reduce the extent of industry rivalry. And statement 2. According to Porter's generic strategies model, a strategy of focused differentiation will be the best for a business trying to compete using low prices. So have a think about those. Pause the video now and then make your selection. What do we think? Well, let's go through them and then we'll reveal the answer. Statement 1, Porter's 5 forces model, which is a model that tries to explain the nature of industry competition and why some industries make more profit than others. Identified those forces, and one of them was the threat of new market entrants. And Porter said that if there is a high threat or rising threat of new market entrants, that increases the extent of industry rivalry. And we know this, don't we? Industries where lots of new entrants coming in, all of a sudden there is much greater intensity of competition. So that's false. It won't reduce, it will increase. Statement 2, according to Porter's generic strategies model, well, if a business is trying to compete using low prices, Porter's model would suggest a strategy of cost leadership would be a better strategy, more appropriate to trying to compete with low prices. So that too is false. Therefore, the answer in this case is D. And we've got one question left. Good luck on this one. Should be okay. Question 15. Samsung is a multinational business with high market shares in several global consumer electronic markets. In recent years, Samsung has invested in developing Everland, South Korea's largest theme park, which Samsung owns. According to Ansoff's Matrix, this is an example of what? Here are the 4 options from the matrix. Again, last question, make your selection now. Well, as with all Ansoff questions, you've just got to read the question and try and see where the examiner is coming from. In this case, I think the examiner was pushing you towards answer C, diversification. It was telling us that Samsung is obviously into consumer electronic markets, but it's also investing, also getting involved in and owning a theme park, which is very much a new product and it's a different market, therefore diversification. We might argue whether it's related diversification or not, but it's definitely diversification. So the answer was C. There we go. That's it. 15 questions on business strategy. Hopefully you did okay. Don't forget to check out the other tests, 1 through 10, and the other tests that we put on the online webinar system on TutorTube. But well done for having a go.